This is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. The day has finally come that we can welcome back the recorders and the readers and the pickers into our recording studio here at Millbrook House in order to record the weekly Talking News, finally back on USB sticks. It has been a long journey since March 2020 when we all had to evacuate the building due to the COVID lockdown. As many of you are aware, we then used Vectis Radio to put our news out every Saturday and Tuesday since then, with people recording at home rather than using the studio. Government restrictions being lifted further on the 17th of May, and finally the real possibility that on the 21st of June restrictions will be hugely reduced, we felt able to offer a limited number of places back in the studio under very strict COVID secures measures to allow the USB sticks to return. This said, however, we also have an alternative way now that you can listen to the Talking News. This week is the launch of our Site for Wight Alexa skill. To access the skill, you will need an Amazon Alexa device. These come in Echo Dots, Echoes and Echo Shows. Each device is fundamentally the same, they just have a larger or smaller speaker and some of them have a screen and a camera. The skill will allow you to listen to the weekly Talking News, the bi-monthly newsletter, Site for Wight notices, IWASP scam notices, hear about the staff and hear about the trustees. And of course, hear about what we do here at Site for Wight, how we can help you, how you can register with us, and ways that you can help other members in a similar situation to yourselves. To enable the Alexa skill, simply say to your Echo device, Alexa, enable the Site for Wight skill. Once you have done this, to access the skill in future, simply say, Alexa, open Site for Wight. The skill has been designed to be self-explanatory, and so the first time you listen to it, it will offer you full instructions on what words to use to go to the previous track, the next track, start over, or move to the next report. If you have any problems at all, don't hesitate to call the office. We've all been playing with the skill, so we're all pretty au fait with how it works. If Alexa's not for you, we also have the Site for Wight telephone service. If you dial 01983 475547, you will be able to access the exact same information you can on the Alexa skill, but through your telephone. Please note, if you do not have a call-inclusive package, this will incur a call charge. And finally, we have almost completed our Google skill. This will work on the Google devices as opposed to the Amazon Alexa devices. We'll bring further information when this skill has been thoroughly tested, which is the stage it is at the moment. This week, we have also prepared a booklet which has gone out to all members, which details the reopening of Millbrook House from the 1st of July. Of course, this reopening is subject to the announcements from the government which are due on or before the 21st of June. To ease both members and volunteers back into the activity schedule, July and August we will be offering a limited schedule of activities, mainly based around Wednesdays and Thursdays. But as always, if you need any help, please do not hesitate to call the office Monday to Friday, 9 till 4 on 01983 522205. Thank you for listening to this week's Talking News, and I look forward to welcoming you again next week. Lisa, CEO.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Bright future for rural school as closure looks increasingly unlikely. With no formal consultation started, the new school year will begin as usual. That's the thought of Peter Shreve, Assistant District Secretary of the National Education Union, about Chillerton and Rookley Primary School. Campaigners say that the closure of the much-loved Chillerton and Rookley Primary School is looking increasingly unlikely, thanks to a refresh at County Hall and a principled objection to closing rural schools by new Conservative group leader Steve Hastings. Speaking prior to the election, Councillor Hastings said, "In principle, I'm completely against the closure of any rural school. I recall my visit to the school and I found it a very well-loved school and the fabric of the village of Chillerton, which is a tight-knit community. Hastings' views are said to be shared by many other councillors, including the leaders of all elected parties and groups. Council officers and the school's governing body, the Stenbury Foundation, have refused to provide information on the proposed closure timetable. It is hoped that the new council will follow government guidelines and keep the much-loved rural school open by working with parents and community members. A popular solution being proposed is to create a flexi school, which is successful elsewhere in the country and would secure the long-term viability of the school as well as supporting home educating families. Parent Hannah Dawkins said, "There is a real family feel to Chillerton and Rookley. The children play together across all year groups and the staff are fantastic. My son leaves and returns happily every day from this loving, caring school." Parents Mr. and Mrs. Sinfield added, "The primary school at Chillerton is endeared by all that have had the opportunity to attend. There are 19 primary schools closer to our home, but the travel is far outweighed by the beautiful setting and warmth of character it instills in all pupils that attend. We also cannot thank the teaching staff enough for their part in maintaining that environment."
This is Chris, reading an article from On the Wight. Isle of Wight Council on Indian variant COVID-19 case. No cause for panic. This is not a cause to panic, but it is a cause for caution. That's the message from Simon Bryant, Director of Public Health at the Isle of Wight Council, following the first recorded case of the variant of coronavirus first identified in India on the island. The Isle of Wight is one of 127 local authority areas where the variant of concern, VOC, has been detected, and it is likely that it will be present in all local authority areas in the future. On Wednesday, Mr. Bryant sought to reassure residents that the situation on the island was managed appropriately and robustly. Where a VOC occurs, Public Health England's local health protection team ensures there is a swift follow-up, with any close contacts asked to self-isolate and further precautionary testing offered. Mr. Bryant said he would not reveal the specific location or comment further on the circumstances due to the risk of identification. He said, "While we wouldn't usually comment on an isolated case such as this, given the level of concern expressed locally, we felt it was important to reassure residents that the situation was managed appropriately. I understand people will be concerned about this new variant. We know that the number of cases of this variant are increasing across the country. But it is important to emphasise that there is currently no evidence that this variant causes more serious illness or that the vaccine provides less protection against it. What we do know is that this variant spreads easily, which is why we need everyone to continue with the behaviours that we know stop the transmission of the virus. Get vaccinated when it's your turn. Continue to test regularly when you don't have symptoms. This can stop you unknowingly passing on the virus to others. Self-isolate and get a test at Nucleus if you get symptoms. It's vitally important that we continue to wear face masks where required, unless you are exempt. To keep on washing your hands regularly and keep 2 meters away from anyone not in your household. We're all enjoying more freedom following the relaxation of some rules this week, but I would advise meeting outdoors where possible. And if meeting indoors, then open the windows and the doors. This simple action will make a big difference. Just doing one thing isn't going to work. We all need to play our part, work together and continue to follow the guidelines. Our behaviour can help stop the spread. Earlier this week, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the variant first detected in India last October, known as B.1.617.2, was set to be the dominant strain in the UK. There are 86 local authorities where there are 5 or more confirmed cases. The key symptoms associated with an infection of B.1.617.2 are the same as the Kent variant: a new persistent cough, a high temperature, the loss of taste or smell. Mr. Bryant added, "This is not a cause for panic, but it is a cause for caution and a reminder that we can't let down our guard. The best way to protect against the virus and all its variants is to continue following the public health advice, which remains the same for us all, whether we have been vaccinated or not. Hands, face, space, and fresh air. Get vaccinated and make test record repeat part of your weekly routine." Thanks to everyone continuing to follow the guidance. The infection rate on the island remains among the lowest in the country. I'd urge everyone to keep going and use your judgment to keep everyone safe.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Award-winning sea bin installed in East Cowes. An award-winning piece of technology that will help reduce pollution and engage the public in a plastic campaign is being installed in East Cowes today, Wednesday. The sea bin can collect over 1 tonne of litter each year. That is the equivalent of 50,000 plastic bottles or 40,000 drink cans. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust want to install them around the Solent, and this is the second one after the first was installed in 2019 at Ocean Village Marina, Southampton. The sea bin represents a collaboration between several local organisations as part of the Trust's marine project. Secrets of the Solent, which is supported by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. It sits in the water attached to a structure like a pontoon, and it floats up and down with the tide. By drawing in and filtering water from the surface, the device catches a wide range of items, from large plastic bottles to microplastics as small as 2 millimetres. The project will see several sea bins placed across the Solent, each accompanied by an information board explaining the technology and its environmental benefits. Sea bins need to be in slightly sheltered areas. The currents cannot be too fast and the wave action cannot be too great, so perfect for East Cowes. Lymington will be where the next sea bin is installed before too long, and it is hoped there will be another installed on the island in the near future. The machine will be maintained by national boating business Boat Folk, which operates East Cowes Marina, and volunteers or marine champions of the Trust, who will be responsible for emptying it. This summer, volunteers will also be conducting surveys on the island and hosting a range of events. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust are always looking for marine champions. Things are not going swimmingly at sea. The latest figures show a dramatic decline in world ocean health, and a significant reason for this is the vast amount of plastic pollution flooding our waterways. It is estimated that 15 million tonnes of plastic enter the world's oceans every year, and this figure is projected to almost triple by 2030. It may be versatile and incredibly useful, but plastic never decomposes. It just breaks down into smaller pieces. The resulting microplastics contain toxins that can be passed on to the animals that eat them and, in turn, to us. By eradicating our use of unnecessary plastic, like single-use drinks bottles, coffee cups, and plastic bags, and switching to reusable alternatives, we can do our bit to protect our seas. Dr. Tim Ferraro, senior marine biologist at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, said, "We are thrilled to have played our part in this sea bin installation through our wonderful Secrets of the Solent project. Sea bins help us all to tackle the global problem of plastics in the environment, both by collecting litter that is already harming our seas and by raising awareness about the issue. Hopefully, when people see the sea bin at Boat Folks East Kells Marina and the plastic it collects, they will be motivated to take steps to reducing their own use of disposable plastics and determined to make every effort to recycle or dispose of them responsibly." Steve McCrindle, Port Operations Director at DP World, Southampton, added, "We are delighted to work with the wildlife trusts and fund the sea bin, which will help support the Solent's diverse coastal habitats. DP World in the UK will continue to do everything it can to protect the marine environment and is working hard to meet the government's net zero carbon target as part of our global commitment to sustainability." Mike Townsend, Boatfolk Marine Manager for East Cowes, concluded, "It is great to be adding the sea bin to the range of initiatives we have in place to reduce ocean plastics. We are proud to be working with the local wildlife trust to provide a home for the first sea bin on the island, as it is so important for us to protect the delicate ecosystem both in and around our marina."
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight County Press. Care manager gets ban after fourth drink drive offence. A care manager who lost her job after she racked up her fourth drink drive conviction was banned from driving for 3.5 years by Isle of Wight magistrates. Elizabeth Ann Gallagher, of no fixed address, admitted drink driving on Shanklin Road near Shanklin during the early hours of May 2nd. Kieran O'Toole was driving home from work in Newport towards Shanklin when he came up behind Gallagher's Ford Focus at the Whitley Bay roundabout. He said he feared Gallagher would veer off the road after watching her swerve and drift to the edge of the road and correct herself 3 times, before she eventually struck a road sign and span into the middle of the road, said Anne Smout, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates' Court. Mr. O'Toole went to check on Gallagher and, because he suspected she had been drinking, went to call the police. Gallagher tried to intervene, swearing and ordering Mr. O'Toole not to call the police. When he asked her for her name, she gave him a false name. When the police arrived, Gallagher had fled the scene, but they soon found her and brought her back to the crash site, where Mr. O'Toole confirmed she had crashed the car. She gave a breath alcohol reading of 91 micrograms, more than double the legal limit of 35. Gallagher convicted for being drunk in charge of a vehicle in 2019 and drink driving in 2013 and 2015, told the police she had been drinking at her friend's house in Wroxhall. She said she thought she was allowed to drive, but the licence she was last issued was prior to her most recent offence in 2019. She had not checked her driving status with the DVLA. Gallagher later admitted she had falsely obtained a car insurance under a friend's name. In court, she admitted driving without insurance on May 2nd, together with driving without a licence and fraud by false representation on January the 21st. For Gallagher, James Cameron said his client had made a poor decision in driving and in the way she got insurance cover. The 37-year-old blamed her offending on past abusive relationships and said she drank to cope with them. The stresses of her care role during the pandemic had been intense, together with the breakdown of a relationship got on top of her, said Mr. Cameron. She also conceded she was a binge drinker and had been reckless and irresponsible. Magistrates handed her a year's probation to address her alcohol abuse issues, which included being electronically tagged as part of an alcohol abstinence program not to drink for 80 days. She was also ordered to pay £40 cost and a £95 victim surcharge.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Tidal Energy Centre plans to be operational by 2025. The Perpetuous Tidal Energy Centre, PTEC, off the south coast of the Isle of Wight, aims to be operational by 2025, thanks to anticipated government support and a partnership with the European Marine Energy Centre. It is hoped that by placing tidal turbines in the sea around 1.5 miles south of St Catherine's Point, PTEC will generate enough clean electricity to power thousands of homes. The scheme originally received full consent back in 2016, some 5 years ago, but has been delayed by a change in government policy. On the shore, a substation will be built at Flowersbrook in Ventnor at 37.5 metres long and 12 metres wide. A planning application is due to be submitted to the Isle of Wight Council in the coming months. It is claimed that PTEC will enhance the island's growing reputation as a hub for renewable and sustainable innovation, securing a successful and prosperous future. It will also strengthen the economy and employment on the Isle of Wight. The project will generate energy for at least 15 years, resulting in long-term investment and revenues which will boost the economy both nationally and locally. Today's news, 20th of May, of hopes that the turbines will be running within the next 4 years comes on the same day it has been revealed an agreement has been signed with turbine developer Orbital Marine Power. From Monday, local residents are being invited to take part in a consultation on PTEC's proposals before plans are finalised. Public webinars will be held on Monday the 7th of June at 6 p.m. and Tuesday the 8th of June at 1:30 p.m. If you would like to take part, email contact@ptec-consultation.co.uk.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight to play a part in the creation of new British Army battle tanks. A new fleet of the most lethal battle tanks in Europe will be partially produced on the Isle of Wight as part of an £800 million contract. The new Challenger 3 tanks have been commissioned by the British Army and will be produced at the Rhine Metal BAE Systems land plant in Shropshire and are set to replace the Challenger 2 tanks that have been in use since the late 90s. Around 200 jobs will be created at the Telford-based plant, with a further 450 roles created across sites, including on the Isle of Wight, as part of the supply chain. Although the companies involved on the island cannot yet confirm their involvement. The new tracked vehicles are part of a major military investment and will be able to travel at breakneck 60 miles an hour, featuring automatic target detection and tracking systems, thermal long-range cameras, and improved suspension to improve accuracy on the move. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said, "This represents a huge shift in the modernisation of our land forces through the increased lethality of Challenger 3. This pioneering new technology allows us to deliver immense warfighting capabilities in battle spaces filled with a range of enemy threats." The £800 million investment will also create hundreds of highly skilled jobs across the country, ensuring our soldiers benefit from the very best of British engineering. The first series of tanks are expected to be delivered by 2027, with the full fleet arriving by 2030.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight County Press. Isle of Wight marks Dementia Action Week. The Isle of Wight is marking Dementia Action Week until May the 23rd, with advice and information for islanders worried about others or themselves. Care home provider Greensleeves Care, which manages the Briars in Sandown, has launched an online advice centre offering tips and guidance for people supporting loved ones with dementia. Dementia affects 1 in 14 people aged over 65 and 1 in 6 people aged over 80. Steve Mason, an Admiral nurse from the Briars, said, "For many people living with dementia and their families, it is important that they can stay within their own home for as long as possible." The Briars home manager, Leslie Shaw, said, "One thing to remember is that no two people will experience dementia in the same way. As someone progresses in their dementia journey, different advice will become relevant depending on how the dementia affects the individual. Taking basic safety precautions will always be beneficial to ensuring your loved ones can stay independent for longer." Many symptoms believed to be signs of dementia, memory loss, disorientation, communication and language issues, can be caused by other things. Seek guidance from a GP if you have concerns about yourself or a loved one. One of the impacts of dementia is on how the brain processes visual information. This can lead to confusion and can increase the risk of falls and accidents. Tips to support dementia patients to live at home include using dementia-friendly flooring. Dark-coloured doormats can look like holes in the ground. Patterned carpets can look as though the ground is covered with objects. People living with dementia do not always communicate in the exact same way they used to, but that does not mean they do not communicate at all. Speak clearly and slowly, keeping your body language friendly and unthreatening. Meanwhile, Isle of Wight bus operator Southern Vectis has announced that more than 200 of its drivers are trained to be dementia friends, which means they are aware of the special requirements of passengers with dementia. The initiative is being delivered alongside Specialist Charity and Alzheimer's Society. All the firm's drivers have completed dementia-friendly training via its Customer Promise course. Southern Vectis Head of Communications, Nikki Honer, said people living with dementia, in particular, rely on our services in order to carry out their everyday activities. We know they have special requirements when travelling with us. Any new members of our team will become dementia friends as part of their trainee toolkit. It is about ensuring all our customers receive excellent service, no matter what they are having to deal with elsewhere.
This is Katrina reading from Isle of Wight County Press. Isle of Wight dogs-friendly hotspots, according to TripAdvisor. With 2021 set to be the year of the staycation, there could be a better time to explore the island with our dogs. It can be difficult to find places to visit and eat that allow dogs, let alone welcome them as much as their human companions. Fortunately, dog-friendly holiday provider Canine Cottages has crunched the TripAdvisor data to find the most dog-friendly places to go on these shores. Based on the percentage of reviews on TripAdvisor suggesting a place was dog-friendly, they found the most dog-friendly beaches, places to visit, pubs and cafes across the county. Locations at the top of the list include Yaverland Beach Sandown, Apley Beach Ryde, the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, Wroxall, Ventnor Botanic Gardens, the Garlic Farm, Newchurch, Isle of Wight Steam Railway, Haven Street, the Needles Battery, Totland, the Needles, Allen Bay. The top 5 dog-friendly places to eat across the Isle of Wight are listed as Off the Rails Yarmouth, the Fighting Cocks near Arraton, the White Mouse Inn, Chale, the Lifeboat, East Cowes, Pointer Inn, Newchurch. Canine Cottages has also released the Dog-Friendly Index, where you will find dog-friendly places as recommended by TripAdvisor reviewers. Covering the entirety of the UK, each place featured has also been given a paw rating out of 5, with only places rated 3 paws or higher featuring in the tool. Shannon Keary, Digital PR Manager at Canine Cottages, said, "With many more people looking to explore what's on their own doorstep with their dogs this summer, it's fantastic to see the sheer number and diversity of places welcoming dogs across the country." We hope our dog-friendly index tool highlights the top spots for dog owners to visit near them, as well as some hidden gems they may not have been aware of.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight High Streets awarded share of £6 million funding for cultural programme. Isle of Wight High Streets in Newport and Ryde are set to receive a share of a £6 million fund to deliver community-led cultural activities over the next 3 years. Historic England has announced that more than 60 High Streets Heritage Action Zones, HSHAZ, will receive substantial grants totalling £6 million going to local arts organisations, with grants of up to £120,000 awarded to 6 high streets in the South East taking part in the Heritage Action Zone scheme. Newport High Street will receive a £90,000 share of the funding, with the Renew Newport cultural programme on track to offer a transformative programme of culture-led regeneration, including a children's festival, a public art project, art exhibitions, museum displays, heritage talks, and a rolling programme of concerts and workshops. The consortium responsible is made up of 8 organisations and led by Charity Independent Arts. Meanwhile, in Ryde, a £95,000 grant fund 2 major projects, both of which focus on Ryde's tradition of outdoor arts. Waving the Flag is a 3-year project designed to strengthen and develop Ryde Carnival to ensure its sustainability for the future. Stories of our streets will bring to life Ryde High Street's personal, commercial and entrepreneurial histories. The project will engage new audiences in the heritage of the High Street through creative commissions that draw on newly collated secondary and primary research into 10 premises. Both projects will use the physical space of the High Street and established cultural traditions to renew civic pride in the town. Abby Wheeler, creative director of Ryde Arts CIC, said, "Ryde Arts CIC are delighted to be leading the Waving the Flag project on behalf of the newly formed Cultural Consortium. We have a strong network of local partners who will be working together to combine an enormous wealth of knowledge and expertise with outdoor arts activities. After the disappointing setbacks of the last year, Ryde Carnival will be coming back to Ryde in 2022, stronger than ever." Emily G., Regional Director, Historic England in London and the South East, said, "The High Street Cultural Programme is such an important and exciting way of bringing people back to their cherished high streets in need of love. We're working together to regenerate historic high streets through conservation and building work, and this community-led cultural activity programme will draw people back to enliven and shape these special places for the future." Culture Minister Carolyn Dinage, MP, said, "High streets are often the heart of our communities and should be places we all want to engage with and enjoy. These grants will help transform high streets into thriving cultural hubs, encouraging us to embrace all the joys our town centres have to offer." As well as the grant-funded cultural activity taking place on high streets over the next 3 years, Historic England is also curating a programme of cultural commissions to get people back to high streets. On the island, this includes the unofficial twinning of Ryde and Ramsgate. A programme of creative commissions will see artists working with local people to uncover what the two towns have in common. The artworks will explore themes of identity as well as the community's collective hopes and challenges, culminating in a series of installations, performances and digital work. Artist practice Mooch are working with local residents and students at Broadstairs College for their project Isle of Rydesgate, a fantasy town that twins Ramsgate in Kent and Ryde on the Isle of Wight. In June, local people will be sent craft kits to decorate scale models of historic high street buildings, and from July to August there will be exhibitions of the model high streets in town centre shops in Ryde and Ramsgate. Fancy drawing a model building for the Fantasy Island? If you would like to join in making a template, you have until the 21st of May to send in your drawing of one of our buildings. Use the Mooch instructions to help draw your building template of one or more buildings from the list.
This is Chris, reading an article from On the Wight. £350,000 government funding supports Isle of Wight Council's bold ambition to end homelessness. The extra funding will mean crucial work to help people off the streets can continue and support Isle of Wight Council's ambitious vision to end homelessness on the island. More rough sleepers are set to be helped off the streets and into safe accommodation thanks to a further £357,500 in government funding. The money, secured by the Isle of Wight Council, will support vital projects such as the island's new homeless shelter and assessment hub, as well as targeted support to help rough sleepers off the streets for good. Jamie Brenchley, the Council Service Manager for Housing Needs and Homelessness, said, "Across the island there are staff and volunteers working tirelessly to make a real difference to the lives of rough sleepers. This additional funding will mean that crucial work to help people off the streets can continue and support our bold and ambitious vision to help homelessness on the island." There is still much we need to do, but together, alongside our partners, we are beginning to make change possible for people that have found themselves with no other options but to sleep rough on the streets. The government's Rough Sleeping Initiative was launched in 2018 to help local areas provide tailored services to those living on the streets. Helping to fund. Examples of the work that the scheme is helping to fund on the Isle of Wight include Howard House, Assessment Hub. Due to open shortly, the Assessment Hub will help vulnerable people avoid rough sleeping by providing a roof over their head as well as the support they need to enable them to make positive, longer-term changes to their lives. Housing First, a multi-partner service specifically targeted at the single people experiencing homelessness, offering a wide range of accommodation options and tailored support. Navigators. Rough sleeping navigators work with people rough sleeping, people at risk of rough sleeping and/or those who are newly accommodated off the street who would benefit from tailored support.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Observer. Third time lucky for Trinity Theatre. It will surely be a case of third time lucky for Trinity Theatre, Cowes, when it is finally able to welcome back audiences for live theatre next month. Curtailed twice due to COVID-19 restrictions, the theatre will at last be able to stage Recipe for Murder, its first performance since lockdown began in March 2020. Director and Trinity Theatre President Dinah Bowman said, "At last, we are thrilled and full of renewed optimism at the return of live theatre. Everyone is chomping at the bit to get onto the stage in what could be the most rehearsed play ever on the island." She said just 50 tickets per show are now on sale for the COVID-secure performances of Recipe for Murder. 7:30 p.m, June the 3rd, 4th and 5th. The thriller by J.D. Robbins centres on David Lawson, a research scientist who is not a well man, his sister Beatty, a visitor Kit Kelly, who has moved into the neighbourhood, and his wife Claire are all worried about him. But Claire feels Beatty is taking things too far. Who is right? Is he really unwell, or is there more than just tea in the cups? Suspicions deepen. It is hoped the community will once again get behind and support their local theatre, which is home to Cowes Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society. Dinah said, "We may have been mothballed for a time, but we're now without doubt springing back to life. Our theatre is a beautiful building which only survives thanks to the amazing commitment of our audiences. It's been a tough time for everyone, so come and enjoy some time together, getting back to the things we love so much. Every precaution is being taken to ensure the performance is COVID-19 secure, including limiting audience numbers, ensuring seating is sufficiently spaced, providing hand sanitizers, and ensuring face coverings are worn throughout the performance. Tickets cost £7 and are on sale now at caods.org.uk or call 295 229.
This is Katrina reading an article, Shocked and Saddened, Fly Tipping Dumped on Isle of Wight Beauty Spot. Dangerous asbestos, as well as other rubbish, has been dumped on one of the island's beauty spots. Over the weekend, piles of rubbish were found on the byway that goes over St George's Down, between Newport and Arreton. Visiting the dump sites, Isle of Wight councillor of the area, Central Rural, Susie Ellis, described what she had seen, including a large pile of asbestos. She said, "I am shocked and saddened by this and all instances of fly tipping and littering. There is really no excuse for this behaviour." The Isle of Wight Council confirmed asbestos had been amongst the items dumped, but on private land, so it will talk with the landowner and the Environment Agency to ensure it is safely removed. Other rubbish included children's toys, wood and general household waste. An Isle of Wight Council spokesman said the tipping was reported to the authority by numerous people, and they were very grateful for the reports. The Council's environmental health team investigated the waste left yesterday, Monday, with the vast majority of the rubbish cleared by Amy already. Some of the items, however, were thrown into difficult-to-reach places, so will take some time to retrieve. The spokesperson said a strategy to collect the remaining items is being worked on to collect those hard-to-get items, reminding residents of their duty of care to ensure waste is disposed of correctly. The council spokesperson said, "Waste produced in your home or business is your responsibility, even if you hire a private company to take the waste away. To avoid being caught out by rogue waste carriers, it is advisable you check for a waste carrier's license at Waste Carriers Brokers and Dealers, which is environment.data.gov.uk/public-register/view/search-waste carriers brokers. Ask what will happen to your waste. Complete a waste transfer note and get it signed by the carrier. One can be downloaded here. Assets, full stop, publishing, full stop, service, full stop, gov, full stop, UK/, government, /uploads, /system, /uploads, /attachment, _data, /file, /311081, /lit, _7932.pdf. Keep your receipt and evidence of the transaction, including screenshots from your phone. The spokesperson said if those steps are followed and your waste is fly tipped, it will help the council to take enforcement action against the tipper.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. "I wish them well," says outgoing Isle of Wight Council leader in final report. The outgoing leader of the Isle of Wight Council, Dave Stewart, has used his last council report to list the achievements of the Conservative-led administration in the past year. Following the polls earlier this month, May, Mr Stewart lost his seat on the council to Green candidate Claire Critchison by 240 votes in a shock result for the Isle of Wight. The Island Conservatives lost the leader of their party, who has since been temporarily replaced by Councillor Steve Hastings, as first reported by Isle of Wight Radio, leaving the authority in a state of no overall control with no leader. As exclusively reported by Isle of Wight Radio, Councillor Hastings was voted leader of the Conservative Party on the Isle of Wight earlier this month. Mr Stewart was the leader of the council for 4 years, taking over from the recently re-elected Councillor Jonathan Bacon, who stood down in 2017. At every full council meeting, the leader uses their report to update fellow councillors and the public on what they have done or what has been achieved since their last meeting. Ahead of the first full council meeting since the elections, Mr Stewart provided his last report full of the Conservatives' achievements, with praise for our council officers, staff and all those involved in the COVID response on the island. The achievements listed by Mr Stewart in 2020-21, including investments in Venture Keys, Branston Farm for affordable homes and a rural business centre, investment to secure the last leg of the Tour of Britain cycle race in September 2022, permanent provisions for the homeless, Island Line, St Mary's Junction, Prison Estate infrastructure, Yarmouth Primary's newly built school in Freshwater. Mr Stewart also said financial stability through 5 lawful and balanced budgets was one of the achievements. The greatest achievement of the Conservative-led administration, however, Mr Stewart said, was the support provided to and within the community during the pandemic. Finishing his report, Mr Stewart said, "I wish all new councillors well and hope to see the island go from strength to strength, building on the solid foundation the Conservative-led administration has provided. Decisions about who will lead the Isle of Wight Council, who forms the cabinet, and if a party will take a majority are all set to be made at the next meeting next Wednesday, May the 26th.
This is Chris, reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Revealed. Plans for empty St Lawrence eyesore to return to its original residential use. Plans to convert an empty and dilapidated 32-bed hotel in St Lawrence into 2 houses, as well as adding 6 tourism units on the grounds, have been unveiled. Turner Holiday Rentals submitted the plans to the Isle of Wight Council for the change of use of St Radigan's Hotel on Undercliff Drive, which has been vacant for the past 5 years. Emergency work had to be carried out on the hotel roof recently to prevent water ingress. Now, to save the property further, the applicants are willing to invest to bring the eyesore site back into use by looking to return the hotel to its original residential use. St Radigan's was built in the 1870s for William Kilburn, a royal photographer, but was used as a holiday retreat from 1938 onwards. Planning agents for the development, Plan Research, said in recent years the hotel has fallen into disrepair due to the financially unsustainable proposition of a 2-star retreat centre operating from a large old building with high running and maintenance costs. The building also needs new heating and electrical systems. The current owners, Turner Holiday Rentals, bought the site in 2016 and underwent pre-application talks with the council, but no plans were ever officially submitted. Proposals now suggest going back to residential use, demolishing the rear wing and building 6 holiday units near the Seven Sisters Road entrance to the site in a courtyard setting. The holiday units would have 18 bedrooms across the 6 semi-detached properties, built in an Edwardian style fitting in with the nearby St Radigan's cottages, and would fund the restoration and upgrades needed on the main building. The agents say the tourism market for large hotels has dried up recently due to the COVID pandemic, with people preferring smaller holiday properties which fell in line with the restrictions. Justifying the development, Plan Research said, a large building that is unused is more likely to fall into neglect than one used as a home. The hotel building will be split in 2, creating a 5-bed and a 7-bed house, one of which would be occupied by the owner of the site if the development goes ahead. You can view the proposals on the Council's website, and comments will be accepted until June the 14th.
Good morning, everyone. This is the second part of Talking News, read by Mike
and Susan.
And we start off with a letter entitled "The Tories Undone by Issues Such as Gurnard Parking," and this is from Roy Bromwich of Gurnard. So, Dave Stewart's guitar solo was out of tune and he mucked up his riffs and got booed off stage. I'm sure that Annie Lennox, given her politics, would be delighted. And so was I, even though I normally vote Conservative. It is an inescapable fact that while the Tories made substantial gains in the rest of the country in the recent local elections, the Isle of Wight Conservatives bucked the trend and lost control of the council. Definitely a C there. I would urge Mr. Steve Hastings, the new leader of the Tory group, to carry out a root and branch investigation into exactly what went wrong. As a starter, he might wish to consider the possibilities that his colleagues lost sight of one of the central tenets of democracy, namely, that politicians are elected to serve the interests of their constituents and not to impose ridiculous policies on them in an autocratic and undemocratic manner. Take the insane Gurnard parking scheme passed by the Tory administration at the council in March. The main purpose of the scheme, which envisages painting double yellow lines and installing parking meters all along the scenic seafront from Gurnard to Cowes, appears to centre around using Gurnard residents as a cash cow for raising £66,000 to inflate the council coffers. However, the projected revenue figures are vastly overinflated and do not even include a cost of the traffic wardens necessary to police the scheme. One only needs to do a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation to determine that after taking into account the cost of setting up the scheme, administering it, and maintaining the parking ticket machines, the costs will far exceed any revenue. The scheme is also likely to bankrupt a number of local businesses, including the historic Woodvale pub, and will cause mayhem in Gurnard village. It is bonkers from start to finish and an act of civil vandalism. It was strenuously opposed by residents, and the then Tory-led council received 449 written objections and a petition from over 3,000 residents, but still blundered on regardless. No wonder they got a good kicking at the election. They deserved it. If Mr. Hastings wants to win back control of the council, I would urge him to pay more attention to the electorate, and a good start will be to bury the Gurnard parking scheme in the deepest part of the Solent, where it can never be resurrected. And the editor's note to that, for those not au fait with the 80s pop music, Mr. Bromwich is referring to another Dave Stewart who appeared with Mr. Lennox in the group Eurythmics.
Council needs to sort out toilets at this cemetery. From Don Smith, Aylesbury. I recently attended a funeral at Carisbrooke Cemetery. I am disabled and use a wheelchair. During the service, the call of nature arrived speedily. I was forced to ask the celebrant to delay the service to allow me to relieve myself. I was wheeled out of the chapel only to be informed that there was no toilet. I was forced to undress and relieve myself amongst the gravestones. Surely something should be done. I have written and complained to the Isle of Wight Council and have not yet received a reply.
Why does Councillor think Ocean Hotel future is rosy? From Jackie Terry, Knighton. I am at a loss to understand why Councillor Ian Ward, in County Press 14th of May 21, would think that the Ocean Hotel has a good future. On what evidence is this based? I have done my own research on the owner, Phoenix Commercial Property Development Limited, and its sole director, Stephen Graham Purvis. This person has had involvement with 12 companies previously to Phoenix and is now currently associated with 2 companies in addition to Phoenix, which have a total debt of 83k. Phoenix has a mortgage on the property. None of the companies is involved with property, and the longest time Purvis has been involved in a company is 5 years. All this information is freely available. On a second issue, land banking is common all over the country, and this is the reason for the low number of houses being built. This country has a very good planning system when properly implemented. The government is intent on completely overhauling the planning process, as in the Queen's speech, and giving free rein to developers in designated zones with no obligation to build affordable housing. There will be no opportunity for residents to object. I responded to the recent consultation. Theresa May has already spoken out about it, and so I don't suppose she will vote for it. I wonder what our MP will do. The proposed legislation is a sop to developers who are major Tory donors. Secretary of State Robert Jenrick's favour to developer and to donor Richard Desmond, where he overturned a planning inspectorate decision in order to save Desmond £40 million in community infrastructure levy, should be remembered. Islanders need to follow the voting record of our MP.
Tactical voting cost Island Tories overall control. From Chris Whitehouse, former Isle of Wight councillor, London. It is true the Conservatives on the Isle of Wight lost what was a comfortable majority, holding 25 of 40 seats, to end up with no overall control, 18 Conservatives out of 39 seats. But the result was much more worrying for Labour and the Liberal Democrats than the Conservatives. Labour has now only one councillor. The same goes for the Liberal Democrats. The rest are a hodgepodge of Independents 13, Greens 2, Island Independents 2, Our Island 1, and Vectus, former UKIP 1. As I have written previously, politics on the Isle of Wight is visceral. It is conducted in a goldfish bowl of media attention, reporting every word and sneeze of the more prominent councillors with an obsessiveness that is hard to believe. There is no hiding place. The island also has 33 parish and town councils, ensuring that there is a forum in every town and village for grievances to be aired, quotable comments to be made, and misunderstandings to be promulgated. That's no excuse for failing to deliver a Conservative majority on the council. But if we dig deeper, the real reason is tactical voting on a scale that is unlikely to work in many areas. Indeed, it's pretty unprecedented in my 4 decades of doorstep campaigning. For example, Dave Stewart, the Conservative group leader who lost his own seat, was not at all unpopular locally or across the island. The issue for him was that Labour, the Lib Dems and the hodgepodge of independents did not field candidates in his ward, leaving the Green candidate to hoover up any and all anti-Conservative votes. The island electorate and political networks have a brutal record, having removed the then Conservative leader David Pugh back in 2013 and taken the Conservative majority away. And then they took the scalp of the independent leader through the ballot box in 2017. This time, in another ward, Cowes North, only Labour fielded a candidate against a Conservative. And again, the anti-Conservative vote was ununified, and thus the Conservative candidate was defeated. Freshwater South cost another Conservative scalp. There was only one independent candidate against him. What's more, there were boundary changes on the island, using the current map for the first time. In terms of issues, the chain ferry across the Medina has cost what to islanders seemed like a fortune, but has since, being brought into service on the Conservative watch, been intermittently out of action, impacting particularly East Cowes residents and businesses. So it's hardly surprising that an outspoken local independent candidate was able to shovel in the protest votes. It's hard to imagine any other area that would permit such tactical agreements between parties and independents that would be so obsessively covered by the local media, in which would otherwise be minor issues get blown out of all proportion, and where the responsibility for such mistakes lies in soon forgotten in the hurly-burly. Whatever the picture elsewhere, the results on the Isle of Wight are hardly a cause of optimism for Sir Keir Starmer's Labour or Sir Ed Davies' Lib Dems. Watch out for the Greens though. They are full of energy and know both how to mobilise young voters who don't normally bother with local elections and how to deploy their resources with targeted precision. As one of the former team of former Conservative leader Dave Stewart, I can only say that in 40 years of political engagement, I have never seen his commitment to the local authority bettered anywhere else. Editor's footnote. The goldfish bowl of media attention Mr. Whitehouse mentions could otherwise be characterised as an active media reflecting the community interest in island events and issues that many mainland areas have sadly lost. This letter is a precise of an article Mr. Whitehouse wrote for Conservative Home.
Strange caution from Peter Shreve, Assistant Branch Secretary of the National Education Union, Newport. Face mask rule relaxed. County Press, 14th May 21, demands comment. Ending the requirements for masks in secondary schools from Monday was premature and lacking in empathy and understanding, particularly with rising cases of the Indian variant. Why now, when half-term is only 2 weeks away? Add half-term, that's 3 weeks of extra mitigation. In addition, post-exam students would be closer to leaving, thereby decreasing the numbers in school buildings and thus risk. Government constantly champions caution. A cautious action is careful and well considered when the government's own sage scientists had recommended restrictions, including masks in classrooms, remain in place. It hardly feels cautious or well considered. The COVID-19 alert level, moving from level 4 to level 3, relative low rates of transmission and death have led to growing optimism. Admittedly, while there is a wide spectrum of feeling around mask wearing, but it's certainly a puzzle. Not requiring pupils to wear masks, pupils no matter whether they are 11 or 18. When mask-wearing adults are still expected in shops and in public transport. As for allowing school trips with overnight stays, it takes weeks to organise this trip type. The possibility of local lockdowns exist. Desirable and educative trips abroad look fraught with uncertainty. While masks removal will no doubt improve interaction in the short term, there is evidential uncertainty and insufficient clarity over any consequences. We should remember how quickly the island moved from level 1 to level 4.
Hangs in the balance, from Cameron Palin, East Cowes. We are now 2 weeks on since the public elected Isle of Wight councillors and put the council in the position of no overall control. In this time, town, parish and community councils have met, selected their mayors, chairs, deputies and representatives for both internal and external bodies. However, the Isle of Wight Council is still yet to do so. But why? It has become clear the Conservatives are under the control of former UKIP councillor Steve Hastings, who has been resounding unsuccessful in forming a new administration. The Conservatives haven't only been publicly released a letter calling for non-Conservative councillors to join them, but they have even been calling up independents, begging for their support. 61% of islanders voted against the Conservatives, thus diminishing any mandate they claim to have. The public are fed up of the same only binary politics and have instead put their faith in 21 non-Conservative councillors, comprising of Independents, Green, Labour, Our Island, Liberal Democrats, Vectus and Independent Network, to work together and put the island first. By this time next week, we will not only know the new leader of the council, but the makeup of their new cabinet too. The fate of the island hangs in the balance of just the 39 councillors.
Please tackle the menace of town centre litter. From Jill Keith, Knighton. Please, could something be done to stop the appalling amount of discarded food and drink packaging left by the river near Matalan in Newport? For a start, can we have more bins, severe warning signs and passers-by not afraid to speak out? I also worry about danger to the visiting herons, egrets and all the resident wildlife. And accompanying this letter is a photograph of a seat at Matalan with all kinds of rubbish strewn around the base of it.
Wight Memories. The Gruesome Fate of James Dove by Alan Stroud. Most people know the story of Michael Morey. He lived in a remote cottage at Sullens on St George's Down with his 14-year-old grandson James Dove. And in 1736, Morey, for reasons unknown, murdered James and was hanged the following year after a trial at Winchester. His body was brought back to the island and put in an iron cage called a gibbet to swing from the gallows pole just along from the Hare and Hounds, for the rooks and ravens to peck down. There is little else to tell apart from some fanciful local legends, virtually all of which can be dismissed. Even Wikipedia, Historic England, and a well-known island website can't get the facts right. Where have they all got their facts from? There is only one possible place. The May 1737 edition of a newspaper called The Political State. There is no other contemporary account of the murder or trial. All tellings of the story have their twisted roots in this one article. The only other source of information is the excellent 1981 booklet For Rooks and Ravens by Kenneth S. Phillips, a true masterpiece of research. In the booklet, Phillips quotes parts of the Political State account, but because it is the source of everything that has followed since, it is worth quoting the complete 1737 article word for word. It reads, May 1737, at the stop. What's that word, Mike?
Assizes.
Assizes. Right. Ooh. Okay. It reads, May 1737. At the assizes at Winchester yesterday, 7 Knight, an old fellow of the Isle of Wight, was condemned for the murder of his grandson, about 14 years of age. He had bred him up from his cradle, and the child having some way or other disobliged him, he took him out with him one morning about 6 o'clock in June last, on pretence of going to a market town about 7 miles from him, to buy necessities, and carried him into a wood and murdered him with a bullock, which he had taken with him for that purpose. There was no confession made by the villain, nor was the body found till October, when it could only be known by the hat, breeches, stockings and shoes which the child had on when he went from home, and which were found with the body, together with a bullock and the old man's gloves. He had cut off his head and mangled his body, and put the whole into his 2 wallets which he also carried with him. What cruel circumstances might attend at the execution of this horrid fact is at present only known to God and of the murderer. The old fellow did not return home till about a week after the fact was committed, and being asked after the child, and not giving a satisfactory answer, he was taken up on suspicion, and upon searching a chest belonging to him, his bloody shirt, which was also produced in court, was found wrapped up in a clean shirt, upon which he was committed at the summer assizes, and now tried, convicted and condemned, and is to be hanged this day at Winchester, but in chains in the Isle of Wight. He was accordingly executed on Saturday, March the 19th, but without making any particular confession. That is the only account of the murder. All that has followed over the years has come from this one document. There is little else to tell. An entry in the Arreton Rates Book on August the 1st, 1736, records that 1 shilling was paid for the crying of Michael Morey at Newport and searching for the body of James Dove. Morey laid low for a week after the murder, some accounts claiming he hid in a cave in Down End Chalk Pit, later known as Michael Morey's Cave. But according to Phillips, there is not a shred of evidence for this story. Nor is it correct that Morey set fire to the cottage at Sullens, given the name Burnt House Lane to the locality. As Phillips says, whatever house was burnt in far off Burnt House Lane Michael Morey had nothing to do with it. After swinging in the breeze during the hot summer months, there couldn't have been much left of Morey when he was taken down and buried. The site of the gibbet post, later known as Michael Morey's Hump, was excavated in 1815 and 7 skeletons were found. One was assumed to be Morey's, and the skull was put on display in the Hare and Hounds. It actually belongs to a prehistoric female in her teens. Depending on which account you read, the gibbet post is either a beam in the ceiling of the Hare and Hounds or a joist under the floor. Actually, it is neither. The beam story first appeared in the County Press article in 1916, but is undermined by the fact that the said beam bears the date 1735. Kenneth Phillips says, the incorrect date is undoubtedly spurious. It seems likely to have been carved to according with the 1916 article. After Morey's remains were removed, a William Jolliffe of Heasley brought the gibbet cage and had part of it made into a pipe rack, which then stood in the bar of a Newport pub for years. According to Phillips, it has survived and now is in a private hands. Try to think of James Dove, not Morey, the next time you pass the Hare and Hounds.
Will Laura be able to fight the Battle of Hastings? And we have a pair of photographs here. Could Laura P.C. Wilcox be the best person to challenge Steve Hastings? And there they are, facing each other. Well, almost facing each other. So, a second successive Conservative leader has lost their seat at the local elections after failing to deliver on outlandish promises made about improving our school. Dave Stewart's shock defeat to Green candidate Claire Critchison for the Chale, Knight and Shorwell seat mirrors the event of 2013, when the previous Tory leader, David Pugh, lost his seat in Shanklin. Aside from Stewart's defeat, it was a fairly good result for the Tories, returning 18 councillors from the 39 seats being contested, but that is too short of having an overall majority. The Green Party managed to get 2 of their candidates elected, while the other major parties, Labour and the Lib Dems, managed to muster 1 councillor each, but to me it would seem all 4 of those councillors were elected on personal popularity and not because of the parties they represent. Labour and the Lib Dems have completely lost their identities nationally, with no one really knowing what they stand for or who they represent. So the election of Richard Quigley, Labour, in Cowes was all about him and not his party, and likewise for the very likeable Andrew Garrett, Liberal Democrat, in Parkhurst. The other 17 councillors elected were independents, although former council leader Jonathan Bacon is an independent under the banner of the Our Island group, and Darrell Pitcher under the banner of the Vectis Party. Without an overall majority, the Tories aren't able to form the local government. But new leader Steve Hastings has apparently wasted no time in contacting all the opposition councillors in an attempt to either get them to join the Conservative Party or form an alliance. Mr. Hastings and his fellow Conservatives will feel they have the right to take control, but the majority of the 41,000 people on the island who voted have shown that they don't want a Conservative-run council. And if you add in the 70,000 who didn't vote at all, there can be no denying that the people of the Isle of Wight have no appetite for a Tory council whatsoever. So in the interests of democracy, the 17 independents should get together to form to form the council under a One Ireland banner, and should invite the two Greens, plus Quigley and Garrett, to join them, leaving the Tories as the opposition party. The question is, which independent has the ability, the guile, and the negotiating skills to pull this off and form a united council? For me, the person most capable of making such a thing happen is Laura Peachy Wilcox. Laura is a former chairperson of the council and has the aforementioned qualities needed to pull things together and head the council. The new councillors meet at the first time next week to formally elect a leader. Will Hastings have done enough behind-the-scenes schmoozing to return a predominantly Tory council, or will someone like Peachy Wilcox pull together the independents? We'll find out very soon.
Safety first as shops reopen. Hairdressers to hotels, cafes to cinemas, pub chains to independent shops, high streets across the country are opening up again. But it's important it happens safely. Businesses are ensuring they comply with COVID-19 safety measures, such as social distancing signs, PPE and hand sanitizer. Restaurants, salons and theatres are amongst the venues to put in place new booking procedures, ensuring we can all enjoy meals or watch shows in relaxed and safe environments. It is vital all customers also obey the rules: hands, face, space and fresh air. For the latest on government guidance, retailers should visit gov.uk working safely.
This is a message from IWASP, which stands for the Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership. Don't fall for phone clone scams. Scammers appear to have access to very advanced technology, which is capable of cloning phone numbers. They will call you, pretending to be your bank, and tell you to look at the number they are calling from and ask you to compare it with the number on the back of the card as proof that they are who they say they are. They may proceed to ask questions which will gain access to secure information around passcodes and access to your account, or, more likely, try to convince you that there is fraudulent activity on your account and tell you to move the money to a secure account they have set up in your name. Don't. Your bank will never behave in this way. Hang up and wait a while before contacting your bank on a number that you have found and tell them what has happened. They can ensure that you are protected from potential scammers. While we are always advised not to answer the phone if you don't know the number that is calling, you please be cautious, as scammers are frequently using 01983 phone numbers, which we tend to trust. Some telecom providers offer free call blocking services, while call blocking phones can be purchased quite reasonably from most major retailers, all of which can help to protect us from scams and scammers. And reporting a scam, the advice is: for advice on scams, call Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0808 250 5050, and I'll repeat that. The Consumer Helpline 0808 250 5050. To report a scam, call Action Fraud. The number is 0300 123 2040. If you are concerned about somebody you care about, or for more information on scams, visit www.iwasp.org.uk.
What's on? Hail to the ale. Isle of Wight pubs open doors. Bars and pubs have been able to resume indoor service for customers this week as lockdown rules continue to ease. The county press visited Shanklin to take a snapshot of opinion from publicans. The likes of Fisherman's Cottage, the Steamer and Chine Inn can now serve people both inside and out, while indoor facilities such as the Townhouse and the Falcon have reopened. With summer on the horizon, Tuesday afternoon saw packed pubs along the seafront, although those in the Old Village and town centre appeared a little quieter. Georgina Gibbs, manager at the Steamer, said, "It's been really exciting for us. This is the first time we've been fully open since Christmas Day." She said, "We've got social distancing markers in place, we're taking track and trace details, staff are working in shift patterns, and we're social distancing behind the scenes as well." The Steamer has also implemented table buzzers, so customers can be served at their convenience, and has now opened up its letting rooms to the public. Fisherman's Cottage on the beach had happy visitors during Tuesday lunchtime, with fresh food and the up-close crashing of waves. Philip Gidley, manager, told the county press, "We have an extra 32 covers and available indoors, which is helpful. Since we fully reopen this Monday, the sun's come out and everyone's wanted to sit outside anyway. I think from the end of May we have a lot of bookings and it's going to be a busy summer." Not all pubs reopened on Monday, with number 64 on the High Street opening on Thursday and offering special deals on its cocktails, while King Harry's Bar in the Old Village will reopen at the end of May. The general consensus, though, appears to be part relief to part excitement, with the promise of business picking up, barring any adjustments to the government's COVID-19 roadmap.
And here's some entertainment news. Live shows return with Thriller at Trinity Theatre. Hopefully it will be a case of third time lucky for Trinity Theatre in Cowes when it finally welcomes back audiences for live shows next month. Curtailed twice due to COVID-19 restrictions, the theatre will at last be able to stage Recipe for Murder, its first performance since lockdown began in March last year. Director and Trinity Theatre President Dinah Bowman said, "At last, we are thrilled and full of renewed optimism at the return of live theatre. Everyone is champing at the bit to get onto the stage in what could be the most rehearsed play ever on the island," she said. Just 50 tickets per show are now on sale for the COVID-19 secure performances, which are at 7:30 p.m. over June the 3rd to the 5th. The Thriller by J.D. Robbins centres on David Lawson, a research scientist who is not a well man. His sister, Beattie, is worried about him, and a visitor, Kit Kelly, who has moved into the neighbourhood, is also worried about him. His wife Claire is worried about her husband too, but feels Beattie is taking things too far. Who is right? Is he really unwell, or is there more than just tea in the cups? Suspicions deepen. Dinah said, "We may have been mothballed for a time, but we're now without doubt springing back to life. Our theatre is a beautiful building which only survives thanks to the amazing commitment of our audiences. It's been a tough time for everyone, so come and enjoy some time together, getting back to the things we love so much." The theatre is home to Cowes Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society. Tickets are on sale now at www.caods, that's caods.org.uk, or call 295229. And there's a further entertainment information piece which says Pool Hall opens in Ryde Seafront. A new pool hall opened this week, just in time for step 3 of the government COVID roadmap. Rocket Ronnie's will open its doors on May the 17th with quirky new decor and an impressive array of entertainment. Back in October, an application was submitted to return a Ryde Esplanade favourite into a family-friendly pool hall. Ronnie Keats of Rocket Ronnie's Pool Hall in Newport has turned the former arcade in Ryde Esplanade into a new pub/club. Breathing new life into the property, the space has been updated with a bar, 12 pool tables, 2 American pool tables, 6 50-inch televisions and a large projector to watch sports and music videos. Ronnie says guests can play pool, drink and eat from 10 a.m. every morning.
More news items from the Isle of Wight County Press. Cows to the rescue. Cattle are set to be reintroduced to 2 environmentally important sites as part of work to restore 2 quarries. The project by Wight Building Materials and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, funded by industry body the Aggregate Industries Local Partnership, will see land at Prospect Quarry near Shelcombe and St George's Down near Newport being prepared for the introduction of cattle grazing in the autumn. The reintroduction of grazing will help manage the scrub and the grassland to provide conditions in which existing and new plants and animals can flourish now quarrying has stopped. St George's Down, a site of importance for Nature Conservative SINC, will initially host a herd of Aberdeen Angus, while Prospect Quarry, a site of special scientific interest SSSI, will host a herd of Hereford cross cattle. Over 1 kilometre of fencing has been erected and a water supply will be installed in time for the animals to be introduced in the autumn. The Trust's work has identified important species such as dormice, grass snake, slowworm and badgers in both sites. St George's Down is an acid grassland with gorse scrub and woodland, while Prospect Quarry is a limestone grassland with special geological features. The WIWWT's ecologist Sarah Boswell said, It will be interesting to monitor these sites as management continues and hopefully see more benefits for wildlife. At Prospect, there is the additional aim of using the management plan to eradicate or control non-native plant species such as Japanese knotweed and to preserve and enhance the geological features on the site.
Now we hear about Andy's dream day at Wembley. Saturday's Wembley day out for Sandown man Andy Windram was the most thrilling occasion of his life after Leicester City won the FA Cup, with a little help to get him there from the county press and a Shanklin pharmacy. The 65-year-old of Redcliffe Close, Yaverland, watched in awe as his beloved Foxes beat favourites Chelsea 1-0 to lift the world's most famous domestic trophy for the first time in their long history. "It was better than winning the Premier League," said Andy, who was in dreamland to be at Wembley for the historic occasion. But in the week leading up to the final, it was touch and go whether or not he would set foot on a ferry at all. What a roller coaster ride it was for the Leicester season ticket holder. He was ecstatic knowing he had qualified for one of the limited number of Wembley tickets available, but then found himself in a blind panic when he couldn't find anywhere on the island able to give him a lateral flow test with proof of his result within 48 hours of the match kicking off. The FA had set strict COVID criteria for fans to enter the National Stadium, and Andy was running out of time. Thankfully for him, the county press, in partnership with the Day Lewis Pharmacy branch in Regent Street in Shanklin, was able to step in and save the day. Luckily, the pharmacy was getting asymptomatic lateral flow testing equipment in, and they agreed to make Andy their first customer. Andy jumped for joy when he received his negative test result by text, followed by his Wembley ticket confirmation. Leicester-born Andy said, "I was over the moon and I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Wembley was an absolute fantastic occasion, made perfect with the victory. Seeing Leicester lift the cup was a huge moment in the club's history, and one I will never forget for the rest of my life."
Drunk driver crashed into cars. A man from the mainland has been banned from driving after drunkenly smashing into 2 cars in Cowes. Nicholas Stephen Smith, 51, of Witton Gate, Milton Keynes, admitted drink driving on April the 17th at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court recently. Police announced the day after the incident that Smith had been arrested and charged after they came across a late-night collision on Newport Road involving a Honda Civic, a Volkswagen Polo and a Kia Sportage. The crash happened at around 10:30 p.m. and multiple fire crews and police officers attended the scene. Smith was disqualified from driving for 22 months. He must also undertake a 12-month community order to include 60 hours of unpaid work. Additionally, he was ordered to pay a surcharge of £95 and costs of £85.
A man charged with vandalising toilets on Sandown seafront. A Sandown man accused of vandalising properties along a wide area of the town's seafront will appear before magistrates later this month. The Island Police have charged Scott Thick with 3 counts of causing criminal damage. The 24-year-old is accused of causing vandalism to various properties along the Esplanade and Culver Parade, as well as public toilets on the seafront last Thursday. He was jailed to appear at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on May the 28th. And also we learn of a nuisance neighbour is jailed. An incensed island man who smashed his neighbour's car window as retribution for complaining to the local authority about loud music and having his sound system confiscated was jailed. Thomas Daniel Bateman admitted causing criminal damage to a car belonging to Brian Leach. Subsequently, Bateman of the Square Freshwater activated a suspended sentence order hanging over him made by island magistrates in January for arson, growing cannabis and common assault against his mother. He was imprisoned for 3 months. The 31-year-old got drunk on 3 bottles of rum and high on butane gas after he discovered council officers had entered his property, which adjoins the Leaches, and confiscated any electronic equipment capable of making sound from his TV to a sound system, said Anne Smout, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Bateman was aware the neighbours helped in the noise nuisance investigation. Eileen Leach said she saw Bateman at the front of the house throw a ceramic flower pot through the rear window of her husband's car, said Mrs. Smout. Bateman told the police he could not remember what happened due to the amount of drink and drugs he had taken, but did not dispute Mrs. Leach's account and was sorry. In a statement, Mr. Leach said he and his wife had been trying to cope with Bateman's behaviour for 4 years, to the point where it became unbearable, particularly with his loud music day and night. Probation officer Dawn Young told the bench of Bateman's unpleasant, intimidating behaviour towards her colleagues numerous times. Mrs. Young reported Bateman had assaulted his parents when he in temper, and was concerned about the potential for Bateman to physically assault his neighbours for reporting the noise nuisance. Bateman was ordered to pay £60 compensation to Mr. Leach, a £40 fine, £85 cost, and a £34 victim surcharge.
Lions send specs off to Africa. A Ride charity has sent more than 2,000 pairs of glasses on their way to Africa. The spectacles were first delivered to Chichester Lions Club, a fellow community service charity under the Lions Club International umbrella. It took many months for the club to collect the glasses from opticians, libraries, and even some of the general public in Ryde, Sandown and Shanklin. Once the glasses were received by Ryde Lions, they took them from the island to Chichester to be sorted by members of the club, reboxed and sent to France for final grading. They would be then sent to the African continent. In total, the Isle of Wight Club delivered 2,380 pairs of spectacles to their Chichester neighbours.
BBC radio programme follows. This week's In Touch. The pandemic has accelerated our use of the digital world, meaning accessible websites and apps have never been more important. So who's doing it well and who could do better? We've been collating your examples of website accessibility and put them to Robin Christopherson from AbilityNet, who offer advice for companies and public bodies on making their online platforms suitable for people who are blind or visually impaired. Also, we review the latest software to be included on the Amazon Alexa and Google Home platforms. And Josh Gregg from the University of York talks about his project to make sure technologies like augmented reality are designed with accessibility in mind from inception. And that's the end of the Talking News, ladies and gentlemen. So it's goodbye from Mike.
And goodbye from Susan.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, a technology special. What are the bits of tech that can improve the lives of people who are blind or partially sighted? Well, we'll be talking websites and apps, the latest developments in smart speakers and what the future holds when it comes to augmented reality. And if the reality is that you don't know what that means, you're not alone. Stay tuned and all will be explained, or as much as we've got time for. But first, Even before the pandemic, we were already living more of our lives online than ever. But coronavirus has put rocket boosters under that. From online shopping to remote appointments to check the state of your eyesight, the digital world is increasingly king. All the more reason then that the websites and apps that we use need to be accessible for people who are blind or partially sighted. So for the last few weeks, we've been asking for your experiences. We asked Robin Christopherson to take a look at some of the examples you gave us. Robin is head of digital inclusion at AbilityNet. That's an organisation which offers advice to businesses and public bodies on making their websites blind friendly. And he began by explaining how the legal landscape had changed since he was last on the programme.
Finally, we have some legislation with teeth, i.e. a named body in the government that will be actively monitoring, reporting on and hopefully enforcing as well. And that's in the shape of the public sector regulations that, yes, they only affect the public sector, but many organisations who want to supply to the public sector are sitting up and listening as well. So thankfully, that made its way into UK law before the Brexit guillotine. Unfortunately, the one that was for other bodies didn't quite make it in, but let's hope that the government decide to enact that as well.
Let's turn to some of our listeners' emails. Now, lots of them brought up a story which is very much in the news about the company Milk and More. Now, they've switched their subscription services entirely online. Marianne O'Brien, she wrote to us, she says, I managed to sign up online, but the app is in portrait mode and I need it in landscape for my iPad. Well, we put that to Milk and More, and they do say their app is designed for a mobile phone, which is why it's in portrait mode. They say they will explore options for a tablet formatted app. So, Robin, good to see a commercial organisation is responding to concerns like that, because with them being a commercial outfit, as you've been explaining, they're not covered by the new legislation.
Well, yes, you're right. They're not covered in the regulations that are new and potentially have more teeth. But we absolutely need to make it clear that it is a legal requirement for all websites and apps to be accessible under the Equality Act of 2010. So loads of time to get to grips with accessibility. But actually, it makes your products better for everyone who's juggling their phone one-handed, trying to look at your website on a sunny day on a small sheet of shiny glass, in a noisy cafe, bumpy bus. I could go on and on. So it really should be a basic requirement to make sure that your digital products are fit for purpose for people, everyone.
So I just want to stay with Milk and More for one more example. Jonathan Fisher emailed to say that setting up an account required him to do one of those picture tests, you know, where you have to pick boxes that show a car, or in this case, a motorbike. And it's all about proving you are who you say you are, checking your identity. Now, obviously, a motorbike is no good to him or anyone who's blind. How common is that online?
These are called capture challenges, and they are the bane of people's lives who have a disability, because it's an arms race between artificial intelligence that the bots have and becoming more and more challenging for actual humans because the bots are getting more and more clever. They have
the bots are the people who are trying to fool you, fraud you, come up with false sites, basically.
Yeah, make fraudulent submissions to an online form, set up fraudulent accounts, spam. So this capture is a challenge. And on the case of Milk and More and many other websites, you have a tick box which says, I am not a robot. And that tick box is surrounded by an invisible area that monitor how you bring your mouse towards that tick box. And if you're a bit shaky, then you're not a robot. But if you tab onto it, like a screen reader or a keyboard user, often that's considered robotic enough not to pass the test. So when you tick it, it says, oh, you're not verified as a human, and then it brings up these distorted images or distorted audio. And I'd be happy to play you a little bit of what one of these audio captures sounds like. Shall I give it a go?
Give it a go, yeah.
9, 3, 2, 7, 9, 7.
Enough already. So what's the answer?
The answer is not to use capture challenges if at all possible. There are plenty of other ways of ascertaining whether this is a valid person, but if you must, then use something like textcapture.com, which just offers very straightforward which of these following words are not fruit, for example, and then it gives you a list and you have to say which ones aren't, which for people, because it's text, if you're a screen reader user, if you need to make the text larger, there are so many reasons why this is a better approach, and surprisingly, it still thwarts the bots because they're not quite clever enough to manage all of those different logic questions.
Moving on to another listener on this, Andrew got in touch to say he was trying to set up a charity using the Charity Commission's website, and he came across forms that weren't in an accessible format and used PDFs, which of course we know can be a nightmare for people who are visually impaired. Now, the Charity Commission are a public body. So, Robin, what did you find out about that?
If you have a PDF that is key to a particular service, then you need to make it accessible, because having the ability to sign on with the Charity Commission is obviously a key part of their service. So that needs to be provided either in an accessible PDF, or I would recommend as an online form.
Just to say what the Charity Commission said, they said that they recognise that some documents are currently only available in a PDF format, but they've identified the issue and they're in the process of developing alternative ways to increase accessibility. They can offer alternative formats for those documents on request. Robin, it sounds like there's progress, but what has to happen to make accessibility as good as it can possibly be for blind and partially sighted people? What still needs to be done?
It's really important within organisations of any size that there is both a top-down commitment and also a bottom-up training and retooling of organisations, so that the tools that they use will produce nice, accessible content and functionality, and that they have the right guidance and training. Now, interestingly enough, I'm on the all-party parliamentary group for disability, and we wrote to the Prime Minister in April last year when, the whole COVID situation was escalating, seeking reassurances that accessibility and, digital when it comes to people with disabilities would be a top priority. He replied in July with a 4-page PDF, and it said all the right things, but at the end of the day, if the Prime Minister's office hasn't got to grips with the basics, then it kind of shows that we really need to embrace digital inclusion, the accessibility guidelines at our core in our day-to-day jobs. Otherwise, disabled people are going to continue to slip through the gap. So, some way to go.
Robin Christopherson, and do keep your experiences coming. We'd like to keep up the pressure on this. But there is still technology which can be used without having to grapple with websites. Smart speaker technology has been a real boon for people with visual impairments. The ability to issue voice commands and get what you want has obvious advantages, and more services are becoming available as third-party developers vie to get their technology included on the main platforms, Amazon's Alexa and Google's Home speakers. Well, the latest to have their skill accepted on Alexa is the AI company RealSam, and Louise Humphreys is their UK manager. I asked her to tell me a bit more about RealSam.
So right now, our service on smart speakers features over 27,000 audiobooks, podcasts. We have the Calibre audio library on there, as well as Torch Trust and LibriVox. We have a range of information as well from sight loss charities. So that's really quite unique and interesting about this service. We recruited 15 charities at the start of COVID when we were being told that it was actually incredibly hard for people to provide their support services, and they wanted to make audio available. So we worked with them to directly put their content onto Alexa and Google Home.
And are you thinking particularly of people perhaps who find websites difficult to navigate?
Possibly, but I guess the idea was that we all have this situation now where there's so many different things that we have to access for different things and different apps and different websites. And our vision was really just to bring everything into one place. So we create this hub for blind people, and you come to Real Sam, and that's where you can access your entertainment, your news, your information from support services. And we want to keep building on that. So we've launched a very early version of the product, and the vision is to keep adding to it and globally to become the one-stop shop really for smart speaker content. And we're seeing different people, younger people. So the smart speaker technology is opening us up to a new audience, and it's great.
And how much does it cost to use?
So we've got an intro offer going for the first year, just as I said, because we are building on the service. It's £19.90, and if you signed up now, you'd get a full 1 year for that price. And we're going to keep reviewing that. Our intention is that it will roll into a subscription price of £9.95, which is comparable with a lot of other content sources that you can subscribe to.
Louise, thank you. So what do the consumers think? Chloe Tier is a disability blogger. She's visually impaired herself, and she wrote a review of Real Sam. So Chloe, what did you make of it?
I really, really liked the concept of Real Sam. I've used smart speakers for many years, but I think their navigation was just a lot smoother. You can give more than one command at once. It just means that, again, everything is in one place. And I think the kind of foundation they've built with Real Sam is going to be really beneficial as more and more content gets added to it.
So what content do you in particular use? What did you take advantage of?
I really enjoyed the audiobooks. It's something I use a lot anyway, but kind of just being able to be like, go to this page and it almost as if I'm opening a book. I also really liked the access to daily TED Talks. Again, it was just really easy to get up. And I think, the sight loss information is going to be really beneficial just if you want to check something or if you're new to sight loss.
Anything it could improve, or perhaps anything completely new it could do?
Ideally, I would want it to almost be my Alexa and kind of run over the whole system. Obviously, that involves a lot of different programs, but I think the core system will allow them to keep adding.
A tenner a month would be the eventual subscription cost. Would you sign up for that?
I think currently probably not, but that is, again, kind of based on the availability they have currently. If they had a wider range of services, then yeah, I think it would definitely be beneficial and just allow a smoother experience.
Chloe, thank you very much indeed. And apologies for setting off your Alexas throughout that interview, as I'm sure that we did. Now, everything we've talked about so far on this programme has been rooted very much in the present and what's available now. But coming down the track is something you've probably heard about, augmented reality. You might have heard of it in relation to Google's glasses, where the idea is that the tech would overlay information onto the real world. Things like a menu if you happen to be walking past a restaurant. Now, maybe that's not much use to people who are blind or partially sighted, but a master's student at York University wants to make sure we don't miss out either on these developments. Josh Gregg is from the Audio Lab research group at York. Josh, I've had a stab at explaining augmented reality. Now do it properly for me.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, you were pretty much right on with your definition of AR there, Peter. AR is a technology where virtual elements are overlaid onto the real world to enhance it. So the example you used was Google Glasses, so that might be information. But the other classic example is Pokemon Go. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Indeed,
yeah, for entertainment too, to kind of put these virtual creatures into your environment so you can interact with them and for fun as well.
But we've been hearing about the practical uses of the Real Sam idea. What are the practical uses of this to actually improve visually impaired people's lives?
So we're looking at using creative, cutting-edge audio technology kind of from the start of the creation process with accessibility in mind throughout the creation process. And then the other thing we're looking at is putting some control back into the user's hands, because not everybody's access needs are the same. And if you think about it, this kind of makes sense. Audio is often used to make media more accessible. The classic example would be audio description on TV or talkback or voiceover on your phone, but it's not always perfect. When you think about audio description, it's often kind of written after the fact without reference to the original script. So what we're saying is audio has all this amazing potential, creative potential to show people, not just tell them. The example would be, in a radio drama, they don't tell you what's going on. They show you through sound effects and through background noise and all those things. So we're just doing exactly the same, but for AR. So that's through using, extra sound effects, through using 3D sound where you can hear things where they are in your environment in a more real way. And also where audio description is really needed, thinking about it much more creatively. So thinking about using first person methods, kind of making the whole experience much more cohesive, much more what the content creator wants it to be. And then the second thing there was personalizing the content. No two users' access needs are ever going to be the same. So it's giving control back so people can really focus in on the sounds that they want to hear. So it might be they need to hear the Pokemon moving more than they need to hear the background music, and letting them make that choice themselves.
And I think you want to enlist people to take part in a research project to design an augmented reality game. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's an opportunity to, have a go, first of all, and also to kind of influence this research and directions we're going. So all you need is an iPhone or an Android phone. And if you follow this link, so bit.ly/audio AR, you'll be able to get involved. But essentially what we've done, we've looked at the AR apps that are out there and looked at whether they're accessible. The answer is they're not. Often they don't even work with TalkBack or VoiceOver, depending which operating system you're on. And I've created an app that is this lovely game experience where you're in a virtual forest and you can interact with things. And so we're looking for visually impaired users and content creators as well, AR content creators, to have a go and tell us, is it accessible? How could we make it accessible? The idea then is to take this app and take that feedback and make an accessible version. So using those powerful cutting edge audio techniques, using a personalizable control so that people can have their own control over it, and coming back to the same visually impaired users to see if it worked essentially. So yeah, please do take part. We'd love as many people as possible to have their say in this because it's such a new developing technology. So that was bit.ly/audio AR. If you'd like to take part.
OK, and we'll have some more information about that on our website. Josh Craig, thanks very much for joining us. And that's all for this week. In the coming weeks, we do want to talk about relationships on this programme. In particular, we're keen to hear from you if you're someone whose relationship has been affected by your gradually losing your sight over time. How did your partner react to that? Did it strengthen the bond between you? Or did it cause problems? We'd like to hear your experiences. Do email intouch@bbc.co.uk. From me, Peter Wight, producer Simon Hoban and studio manager Sue Stonestreet, goodbye.